Objektif utama kemahiran menembak termasuklah untuk menentukan setiap anggota memahami dan mahir di dalam pengendalian senjata, menentukan anggota berpotensi dalam kemahiran menembak serta meningkat keyakinan diri dalam pengendalian senjata dan peluru hidup.
I like you. You do such a good job.
Oh, you recorded that?
Yeah.
Saving the stripper?
Yeah, I'm just throwing them down right now.
Huh? Huh?
You got the shooter, on deck, in the hole.
Go! Out of it, just the old shit! Yep. We'll do it for them.
Can you run those staples down, Caleb?
Yes.
Or do you want me to run it down? I can do it. You're back.
Hand model.
Roger that, sir.
Just for everybody's essay, if I say the tank, I'm talking about the tank past the RDM.
Well, I mean, I guess if he's walking, it's not going to be the same. A good 8 inches. How about that? You just seal these rounds with.
Ask Chad.
Chad, what's stealth for 5?
You gotta wait till after the ammo has been turned in.
I'm on watch.
Hold on.
I'm on watch.
Act like this is the only ammo we're gonna crack open in the next week, 2 weeks.
He's getting all the footage.
Oh, that's what that is.
You're right. Parker will take care of it. I appreciate it. He'll choke him out.
At the fire line.
Did turn it on. Stuff. Over there. Get him in there. What you got?
Shooters, once you have filled those 2
gonna cut
magazines,
yourself?
cover down to your target point.
He's probably not going to use it.
little habitat.
Really shows your good side.
Thank you.
Yeah, so corny. Yeah. Kind of hard to push these down.
Grab the top of the bag, pull it back and let it go. You're fishing all day with your glove.
Magazine loaded with something that you don't want it loaded with. You want to take them out and you're too lazy to do one by one. Here's how you do it. You take the thumb, you push down on the tip of the bullet, and there you go, empty magazine.
Hey, I got a little quick carbine training tip for you from my good friends at Bravo Company USA. Real basic, it's how you load your AR or M4 carbine. Now, real simple, you have the magazine fully loaded. I load mine with 28, some people load them with 30. It's critical, no matter what, you anchor the buttstock, lock it in, magazine in. Once it stops to this point, rotate under, push, pull. That's critical. A lot of times there's enough spring tension or friction from the magazine release to hold the magazine in place, and it's not all the way up to chamber around. Now at that point, come back, grab the charging handle right here, all the way to the rear, release. Now you're ready to go. Going hot.
How to use an AR-15, M4, or M16 in 60 seconds. This is your safety. Usually on the left-hand side, up is safe, down is fire. If you have iron sights, this is your front sight, this is your rear sight. Your rear sight usually flips up. I have an optic in its place. For iron sights, the front is a post, the rear is an aperture. You look through the hole and line up with the front of the post in the center of that hole, and whatever is at the tip of the front post is what you're gonna shoot at. To load the magazine, place your round directly on top, push down. To load the rifle, magazine straight up till it clicks. Sometimes you have to tap it, pull the charging handle back, and let it go. To fire the rifle, flip the safety off, aim at your target, and pull the trigger. On the last round, the bolt will be held open. To drop your magazine, there is a button on the right side. Push it, the magazine will fall down.
Hi guys, I'm Rick Crawley with Achilles Heel Tactical. Welcome back to this UF Pro series of carbine fundamentals. In this episode, we're going to be establishing carbine fundamentals from the ground up, starting with stance and grip. All right, so for stance. For our stance, we want to focus on two things. We want to be able to mitigate and absorb force. Not just force from the recoil that is going to be felt from this weapon system, but also environmental force. So absorb and mitigate forces. Those are two principles that I truly believe in building a proper stance. Other factors that we need to consider are building a sustainable, moldable, and adaptable platform. So not standing toe-to-toe, something that's a little bit more athletic. So when building an athletic stance, I want to make sure my feet are offset about shoulder width apart. I want to make sure that my shoulders and my hips are square to my objective area that I intend to engage. From there, I want to make sure that I have loaded posture from my lower extremity, and then as it enters the upper extremity, I want to make sure that I have good posture from the hips up. So as I present my rifle straight up to my eye, notice how my posture does not go past my heel. I don't stand tall and neutral. What I'm doing is engaging from the hips forward, bringing my chest up over my belt line and driving my gun straight out. All right, moving on to grip. We first want to establish how many points of contact we have on the weapon system. With our dominant side grip and our non-dominant side grip, we also have our stock weld and our cheek weld. So that's 4 points of contact. Now, a lot of the questions I get with the stock weld is where do I place this stock in my shoulder in order to drive in the most efficient manner straight up to the eye? Well, the question just answered itself. In order to find the correct placement of this stock, I want to put the eye box of my optic directly in front of my eye. As I drive straight up with my non-dominant and dominant side grips, I want to make sure that my head movement does not go right, or I have to cant the rifle to find the eye. Not fighting a natural human response of having to go look for the optic, but driving the optic straight up to the eye where I stand tall. That's going to be the goal for your stock placement. Your cheek weld, as far as your cheek weld, that's going to be completely dictated by the height of your optic. As we rise this weapon system up, that we do have a solid, consistent cheek weld. All right, moving on to dominant side grip. This is your fire control hand. I want to be able to make sure that I can manipulate safety selector switches with this hand and make sure that I can isolate from a single joint within my trigger control. For me, that's all my dominant side grip is here to do. It's not here to drive pressure back into my center line. It's simply establishing a high firm purchase and giving me the ability to manipulate safety selector switches and manipulate disciplined trigger control. All right, for me with grip, I want to put the most emphasis on my non-dominant side grip. And I'll demonstrate this for you here in a minute. But as I reach out for my non-dominant side grip, when the gun recoils due to the buffering system that exists in this AR-15 platform, I want to control the front end of the gun, because if the nose of the gun rises, the optic will then follow. What I want to do is not cradle the gun. I don't want to fix on a vertical fixture off the gun. I want to come over, thumb over bore, and control the entirety of the upward movement of this rail. Now, something I like to do within my presentation is make sure that as I present this rifle, I drive my elbows in line with the rifle instead of offline. So that was your non-dominant side demonstration. This is your dominant side. As I present this rifle, I want to make sure my elbows are in line with the gun instead of offline. So moving back to our non-dominant side presentation. So notice as I bring my non-dominant side grip up, throwing my thumb over bore and running my sling from the forward attachment over my radius bone. As I bring my elbow down, it tenses up the sling, giving me more stability. What this is going to do for me is allow me to create a baseline of stability where the disruption is going to be seen from the nose of the gun as it wants to rise. Notice with proper sling tension, the nose is no longer able to. By producing this leverage at the nose of the gun, it establishes a baseline of stability, assisting in the mitigation of recoil and keeping your sights down on target. What I like to do is I will first adjust my sling, build a proper platform within my stance and posture, then bringing my elbows in line as I present the rifle straight to my eye. I will put the weapon on fire, making sure that I'm not driving the weapon system back into me. I want to control the weapon at the nose of the gun, utilizing proper sling tension, and I want to fire 3 rounds while staring straight down. I'm testing my posture and stance per the recoil impulse. So as I bring my eyes down, I fire 3 rounds, and I actually am able to now feel the recoil impulse rather than focusing on returning the sights back down on target. Once I have felt the recoil impulse with 3 rounds, I'm then going to move to 5. Same thing, eyes down, So what you'll be able to tell with these isolation drills is where your posture or your stance is falling short. If you do not have a loaded lower extremity, your toes will lift off the ground. As I load the balls of my feet and load my posture, I look straight down, fire those 5 rounds. A shift in the baseline with bad posture would look like this. As I look straight down, fire my first 3. Notice my toes lift off the ground. Once I adjust, get a good, more aggressive stance, bring those elbows in line, and fire 5 rounds. Now, notice nothing's changed about the baseline of my stance, posture, nor my grip. All right, so next time you're at the range and you're having trouble finding stability within your stance, try these isolation drills. Again, take the focus off your sights and put it on what you're isolating. All right, guys, this concludes this episode. Again, this should not be considered an all-inclusive summary of my curriculum.
In the military, you never know what type of shooting situation you're going to find yourself in. This goes for competitors and enthusiasts alike. So today we're going to go over some basic shooting positions that will help you negotiate these obstacles. We're going to begin with the standing position. The basis of a good standing position is your feet. To get started, I'm going to take a step forward with my weak side foot. I'm going to take my weak knee and put it directly over the top of that foot. This puts about 70% of my weight on the lead foot. Relieving some of the weight off the trail foot, I'll roll my toes forward just slightly so you can slide a dollar bill under my heel. After I get a good foot position, I'll get a very aggressive posture. This will help me control my recoil as I transition targets. To check on a good body position, a good drill is to fire 6 rounds into a target at 10 yards. Your goal is to fire the shots as quickly as possible while maintaining a less than 8-inch group. The last step in a good standing position is the grip. My weak hand is going to have the majority of the grip pressure on the rifle, while my strong hand remains a little more loose so I can smoothly operate the trigger and the safety. You'll notice my left elbow is high. I do this so I can transition between targets left and right quickly. Now let me show you the kneeling position. The base of the kneeling position has 3 points of contact with the ground. I have my strong side toes, my strong side knee, and my weak side foot. The posture is the back of my elbow on the flat part of my knee. I'll lean forward to put a little bit of weight on this so I have a very solid position. The grip, again, will be strong grip with the weak hand on the forend and a looser grip on the pistol grip so I can manipulate the safety and the trigger smoothly. The final position that I want to talk to you about is prone. When I go prone, I look down, find a spot for my left hand to go. As soon as it hits the ground, I'm going to kick out straight back with my feet, lower my body and my rifle down to the ground, and get 3 good points of contact other than my body. I'll have my strong elbow, my weak side elbow, and my magazine. The same positions with my grip are very important here. I'll have the majority of my grip with my left hand on the forend and a looser grip with my right hand on the pistol grip so I can manipulate the safety and the trigger smoothly.
Those were some great tips, Sergeant Horner. Now I'm going to show you how those same techniques apply to shooting around a barricade. First thing I want to talk about is shooting standing from around the barricade. I want to make an L shape with my hand Insert the forend to that L shape and lock it in tight to the side of the barricade. I want to lean forward and really lock this gun in. That way I stay aggressive in my position. That'll give me faster target to target transitions. The next position I want to talk about is the kneeling position from a barricade. The kneeling position from a barricade is a little different from the freestyle kneeling position. From a barricade, I like to keep my strong side knee up. I do this so I can rest my elbow on it to steady up my position. I'm still going to lock in the forend against the barricade tightly and kind of lean forward to give me a more aggressive position. Practice these tips, because no matter what crazy position you find yourself in, you'll be able to put accurate shots on target. Until next time, stay Army strong.
Place the top of the front sight post in the center of the target. Align the center of the rear sight aperture with the center of the target. Hard focus on the front sight. Take a deep breath, exhale, relax, and squeeze the trigger.
Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to talk about how to properly use iron sights. There are a lot of new gun owners out there that have bought rifles for the first time that don't understand how to use iron sights. There's shooters that have had rifles for years but have never used iron sights because when they bought their rifle, they bought a red dot sight or an LPVO or an ACOG or something like that, and they never took the time to learn how to use iron sights. And I've been told by multiple young Marines that when they were in boot camp, they weren't even taught how to use iron sights on an actual firing range. They were taught the theory of iron sights, but they weren't actually ever put on a firing range and taught how to use iron sights actually shooting their rifles. They used RCOs or their version of the ACOG, and that's what they qualified with. And I find that pretty interesting. Again, we have so many new gun owners, and there are so many people out there that have become so reliant on red dot sights and magnified optics that they've completely ignored learning how to use iron sights. And it's perhaps arguable that iron sights are like manual transmissions. They're neat options to have if that's something you want because you enjoy rowing your car. Iron sights aren't really necessary anymore. A lot of gun companies manufacture guns and sell them without sights in the box. You'll just get a pick rail and then you can choose what you want on the gun in terms of your sighting options. So today we're going to talk about iron sights, how to use them. We're not going to get into how to zero your gun. There are plenty of videos out there talking about how to zero your gun, whether to use a 25 meter zero or to use a 50 meter zero. That's all covered ad nauseum, but we've chosen to do this video because doing a quick search, we didn't find any videos that really taught you the principles of how to use those iron sights. Now we've brought out two different types of rifles. We're not going to focus on these particular rifles. What we're going to focus on are the different types of sighting arrangements that they have. We have an AR-15A2 that uses an aperture sight system, which means you have a peep sight in the rear, a circle, and then you have a front post out in the front, which on the A2 is square. Then I've brought out an AK-74. This has a rear sight that's moved further forward, uses a notched rear sight, and then again you have a front post out here in these protective ears. So these are the two different types of sighting systems we're going to talk about. These are probably two of the most common sights encountered out there, especially if you're buying a new AK. They typically do have sights on them. ARs, you have all sorts of options. So let's get into the video and start talking about how to use your iron sights properly. Guys, please swing by and check out Big Daddy Unlimited, BDU. They help support us here at the Military Arms Channel with products and things like that so we can continue to bring you content. There's a link in the video description down below that'll take you to the Mac blog and website. Please follow that link, and from there you'll find a link to Big Daddy Unlimited, and try them out just for 99 cents. You can see what they're all about. In essence, they're just like a big online store that has amazing prices. So please, again, check out BDU. Okay guys, welcome back to the Target of Truth and the Wand of Wisdom. We have two different types of sight pictures here that relate to the firearms that we brought out here this afternoon that represent two different very common sight pictures or sighting systems on military rifles. On top, we have the aperture sight, and that means you have a hole in the rear. It's a peep. It's a complete circle that you're looking through. And then we have a front post out here. This is very similar to what you will find on rifles like the AR-15, A1, A2, and A3 and A4 with their carrying handles. You'll also find a similar sighting arrangement in terms of what the sight picture looks like when you talk about rifles like the FAL and guns like that. So, even the PE-57, which we recently did a video on. So, this is an aperture sight system. Now, pardon my drawings because I'm not an artiste. I screw things up, so that's why this post is black and this one's just kind of a wireframe, is because I screwed this up and had to color it in to cover up that screw up. So please pardon my inability to draw. All right, so this is what your sight picture should look like. And the first thing I want to stress are these protective ears. Ignore them. They're not part of your sight picture, generally speaking. There's no reason to include these or worry about these in your sight picture. They're simply here to protect the front sight from damage should the rifle be banged around. So while you can see them, that does not mean you should use them for aiming. What you should do is focus on this front post and make sure that the front post is centered in your field of view through the rear aperture sight. So if I draw a crosshair through here, you'll see what I'm talking about. That front sight should be in the center of the aperture rear sight. Now, the human mind is wired in such a way that we naturally want to center things. So when you look to that rear peep, when you align that post, your eye will naturally want to center that post in that rear aperture view. And then all you have to do is move that sight onto the target. From there, there's sight alignment, sight picture, breathing, control, slowly pull the trigger, and bang. We're not going to get into the whole concept of marksmanship. We're just focusing on how to use the sights, all right? So down below this drawing, I have how I use my iron sights. This will vary. Some nations will put the front post on the bottom half of the target. I like to aim at the center of mass, which you'll hear me refer to as COM, C-O-M, center of mass. So I'll put the front sight center of mass and basically cut the target in half with that top post. Now, when you're talking about windage using iron sights, some rifles like the A2 have the ability to make adjustments on the fly. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend doing like what they had with the M16A1, which is a fixed rear sight and front sight. You zero the rifle and it was good from 50 yards all the way to 300 yards or meters. So that is the sight picture I prefer to use. Okay, so now when it comes to windage versus dialing it in, what you'll do is what we call Kentucky windage. Now I like a front post like that's on the A2, which is a square front post. The A1 had a round front post that was kind of tapered and still usable, but not my preferred type of front sight. I like the perfectly square sight with sharp edges, and then that allows me, with that flat top of the sight right here, I can, at distance, move my target slightly left or slightly right and compensate for wind. So keep in mind, as you shoot further and further down range, the wind is going to push that bullet one way or the other. And so when you miss, if you use a dead hold like this is what I call a dead hold or center mass hold, COM. If you use that center mass hold and you're shooting 200 yards and you go off the right edge or go off the left edge, it's likely due to wind, assuming you have your rifle properly zeroed. Okay, so let's take the AR-15A2 over to the shooting table and do a little bit of shooting at 200 yards using the iron sights of the rifle. First, I'd like to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the 223 ammunition, the American Eagle, that we'll be shooting this afternoon. We're going to fire 10 rounds because the crisis is still going on, that being the panic buying of 2020, and ammunition is still very hard to come by. So we'll only be shooting 10 rounds per firearm. So now that we're behind the A2, we have the rifle all set up. Again, we have that rear aperture. What we're going to do is get on the rifle, get as close as you can to that rear sight that's comfortable. And then you're going to hard focus on that front sight post. So you're going to look through the rear aperture, you're going to center that front sight post, which should come naturally. And now I'm going to hard focus on that front sight and then move it over to the target. So that front sight is nice and sharp. And the target out at distance still should be easily seen. So it depends on how your eyes are and how old you are and things like that to determine how easy iron sights are to use. For me, I can still use them quite easily using the method I just explained to you. I'm going to go ahead and load the rifle up. Now, I will shoot with both eyes open, typically. The only time I'll squint this left eye is when the sun's coming in at such an angle that I get too much glare or that it's hitting my eye and making it difficult to get a good sight picture. That's when I'll close that left eye. Typically, I'll shoot with both eyes open when I use iron sights on rifles and pistols, both eyes open with a red dot sight, both eyes open even when I'm shooting magnified optics. That's because it gives me my situational awareness. If I close one eye, I lose half of my peripheral vision. With both eyes open, even when I'm on target, I can still see what's going on and moving over here to my left. So if something moves, it can get my attention very easily. All right, so we have the weapon loaded. We have a challenge target at 200 yards. I'm going to square myself to the rifle. I move it forward. I have the bill of my cover I can use to shade that rear sight if I need to in bright sunlight. And other times I can just bring my face back just a little bit because I don't need to use the cover of the bill of my cover to protect that rear sight from the sunlight right now because we have really good lighting conditions. Right? Hard focus on that front sight, cut the target in half with that front post and squeeze the trigger. Easy 10 for 10 at 200 yards. So, I prefer the aperture rear sight. For me, that's always worked better. But the next type of sighting system we're going to talk about is very usable, has been used for a very long time, and is still commonly found on modern firearms that are being sold out there that are generally AKs at this point. All right, we're back to the target of truth. I want you to ignore this drawing for the most part. All right, so the AK has a sight picture that looks much like this. Basically, it looks like a handgun sight. You have a notch in the rear, a blade with a notch, and a front post. And just like the AR-15, the AK is going to have protective ears around that front post. Ignore them. They are not part of your sight picture that you need to worry about. You just need to worry about that front post. You'll notice that down here on the larger picture, that front post, the top of it is flush with the top edge of the blade. And a normal sighting picture, again, calm, center of mass. I'll cut that target in half with the front sight post. And that's what my hold is. Now, once again, in doing this, I can shift left and right holds, just like I talked about up here with the AR-15, simply by holding a little bit left and holding a little bit right to compensate for things like wind. You don't have the ability with most AKs to make adjustments to windage. The RPK has quick adjustment for windage, but the average AK and AKM and 74, they will not have the ability to make those adjustments on the fly, which is a good thing. You need to learn how to use Kentucky windage, which is what this practice is, holding a little bit left or holding a little bit right to get onto target, depending on the conditions that you're shooting in. So it's not unnatural or uncommon to have light on both sides of this front post. The only thing you need to worry about is that the front post is centered in the notch and the top of the front sight is flush with the blade of the rear sight. And then again, whatever hold you zero your gun to. Once again, I use the center of mass hold. So now that we've talked about the rear sight on the AK, let's take the Definitive Arms AK over to the table and do a little bit of shooting, again, at 200 yards. Once again, I want to stress that we're not focusing on the firearms that we're using out here this afternoon. We're trying to show you general practices based upon different sighting systems. It's not really tied to the actual firearms that we're using out here. For example, the AK has this rear blade and front post, but that's very similar to rifles that were used in World War I, both action rifles like the Mauser. Our own 1903 Springfield, before the A3 modifications, had a sighting system just like this, where you had a rear blade and a front post. So it's not just the AK we're talking about here. I know that people like Rob Ski will tell you to use a belt buckle hold, not a center of mass hold like I use, but use a belt buckle hold. It's up to you, the shooter, to zero the rifle based on how you want to use that rifle. So I've always used a center of mass hold, but understand that other people will use different holds. And so you pick what's right for you, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and load up some Red Army Standard 545 by 39 into my Definitive Arms AK here. It's an AIM 74. It's a beautiful build. And once again, we're gonna get all set up here. I'm focusing on that front sight post being flush with the rear blade. I'm ignoring the protective ears of the front sight. I'm cutting the target in half at 200 yards. Okay. So, which one's better? Which type of sighting system is better? That's up to the individual user. There's some people that will prefer this type of aiming system, and there's other people that prefer an aperture style. Also, with AKs, you can buy rear sights. I think Krebs sells one and other companies that takes this blade and V-notch and turns it into an aperture. And some people prefer that even for rear sights that are moved forward, like on the AKM. I know I wasn't going to get into marksmanship and the principles of shooting and things like that outside of just the sight picture, but I want to show you how I shoot the A2 typically. When I come out, I like to shoot from the kneeling position quite a bit when I'm not using the bench, and to do that, I'll use a sling to help steady the rifle. And this is what I call a tight sling. I'll put my arm through, wrap it around once, then my hand comes through and rests on the front handguard. Now I can tighten the sling by pulling my hand back towards the receiver, and when I do that, it tightens the sling around my arm, forcing everything into alignment, and it allows my bones to support the rifle and steady it almost as if I was shooting off a bench. You guys get the idea. Iron sights can be a lot of fun. If you don't have a set of iron sights on your rifle, but if you can put them on there, I recommend going out and picking up a set of good iron sights, because it, again, is a lot of fun, but it also has practical application just in case your sights fail, that being your red dot sight or your magnified optic. Guys, we're supported by you, our viewing audience. We aren't supported by the gun manufacturers or importers. If you'd like to help support us in our mission to bring you information like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, there's a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now, either on your mobile device or your desktop. Click that join button and you can support us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 12 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Last 2 rounds. We'll see you guys later.
Go clear, safe, and empty. First things first, make sure the weapon's on safe. Remove the source of ammunition. Open the bolt. You want rack it 3 times, or just go ahead and lock it open and visually make sure there's no round, no magazine. Then insert the barrel flag. Gently release the bolt onto the barrel flag so as to not break the barrel flag. And that's clear, safe, and empty.
Jangan halakan senjata kepada manusia. Pastikan peluru dikeluarkan dari senjata sebelum menyerahkan kepada orang lain. Lakukan cekah selamat. Halakan senjata ke tempat yang selamat. Clear, safety, MPTE. Sekian, terima kasih. Like, share dan subscribe.